Hi everyone and welcome to Trish Time. Today we have a special guest, Summer Turner, who's the founder for Success for Introverted Women. She's going to be on the show today talking to us about the differences between introverts and extroverts and how these two types of personalities appear to us in the world. So welcome to the show, Summer. Maybe you'd like to start off by telling us a little bit about how you got involved in working with introverted people.
Thanks, Trish, for having me on your show. I guess I've always known that I'm an introvert, and I always felt like there was something vaguely wrong with me, but it was never really a big problem, and I hadn't really thought much about it until I decided to start a solopreneur business. And what happened was I was doing fine as long as I was in my office alone with my editing, ghostwriting business where I never saw anybody. And then after years of doing that, I started getting the urge to go back to teaching, which I had done earlier. And I decided to start a seminar business. And it was fun creating the business. It was fun creating the seminars. And I started doing what we're all supposed to do, get out there and show up for our business. And I felt paralyzed. I could not do what the extroverts were doing. I remember I went to a large chamber networking event, and I felt such overload with the noise and all the people. I couldn't remember the name of my business. I had to look at my business card to see what the name was, and I felt so drained by all the sensory stuff coming in that I didn't have the energy to talk about it. So I'm standing there thinking about, well, I'll just go eat the free food. And an extrovert was standing next to me, and she said, I have been waiting all day for this event. I just couldn't wait. And I looked at her and thought, okay, you've been looking forward to this all day. I've been dreading it all day. I am dying here, and you are thriving. You're having a great time. There's something wrong with this. And that's what really got me alerted to the issue of introvert-extrovert stuff. And so I started researching all about introversion and learned a lot, and I realized we need a better way of doing this.
So what does it actually mean to be an introvert or an extrovert?
The differences really boil down to astounding brain differences in our wiring. What happens is that basically introverts are drained by the outside world, whereas extroverts are energized by it. And it has to do with the blood pathways in the brain, the chemicals that are involved and optimized for either introverts or extroverts, and how that makes us react to the world or to our inner selves.
Okay, and in your opinion,
Why has introversion become such a hot topic these days?
A lot of it has to do with newer technology. In the 90s, there were some brain studies using more advanced technology, especially PET scans, where they were actually able to show these brain differences between introverts and extroverts. But really it wasn't until 2012 when Susan Cain came out with her groundbreaking book, Quiet, that championed introversion and the needs of introverts. And that same year she came out with a TED Talk that has become one of the most viewed TED Talks ever.
So from what I'm hearing, you're saying that there's nothing wrong with being an introvert.
Absolutely not. It really has to do with our physiology. For example, introverts are sensitive to adrenaline. Adrenaline tends to make us anxious, whereas for extroverts, they need adrenaline. Adrenaline creates dopamine, and their brains actually thrive on dopamine. They need it. So they're the ones seeking all of these thrilling experiences that will build up their adrenaline, and they do that for their brain health. That's what they need to do. Whereas for us, it creates anxiety, and that's why we get paralyzed. I know 2 women who refused to go to a large women's networking luncheon because when it came time to stand up and do your 30-second elevator pitch, each one of them has told me that the adrenaline rush was so extreme for them that all they could do is flush all kinds of shades of red and sputter. It was so traumatic that they have told me they will never put themselves in that situation again.
So what about the idea of getting outside your comfort zone? Isn't it somewhat of an idea out there, or a certain concept of success, that in order to be successful, you need to get outside your comfort zone?
No. Again, it's that adrenaline thing. Think of it this way. Extroverts' comfort zone is the whole world. They are wired, and their brain blood pathway is going to the senses, which are connected to the world, and they're wired for action in the world. The introvert's comfort zone is deep inside their minds. This is where we are very active all the time, and we have a rich inner life. So that's not connected at all to the outer world. So I'm saying that the way everything is set up, especially for business now, is optimized for extroverts. We have to figure out a way to use what's going on inside our minds naturally to, yes, get out there in the world, but in a way that is comfortable for us. That's the key.
A lot of introverts have developed coping mechanisms and are able to exist in this world, so why would they want to do anything different when the goals are the same? You know, making the sale, making money. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I have not died going out to networking events, but I was not thriving either, like the extroverts around me who were looking forward to it all day. So yes, we can cope, but coping is not thriving. That's my point. And further, when we are faking extroversion, when we are talking to people, reading our business cards, remember our business, their brain is wired to sense inauthenticity. It's part of our limbic system warning, don't trust this person. So that's going on in their brain when they're sensing that we're not really being authentic. And so they're not going to trust us, and they're not going to do business with us. So that's not really the best way for us to proceed. So coping is not thriving, and coping is not being our authentic selves and doing things that we enjoy. They enjoy their way of doing it. We're coping with it. Why can't we have a way that we enjoy?
What are the different coping mechanisms that introverts employ, especially when they own their own businesses?
You have your own business especially, you need to honor your comfort zone needs. You need to use your gifts of the way the blood is flowing. It's the areas of the brain associated with thinking and planning and strategizing. And that's great. But in a way, it can be a weakness in that we tend to stay in planning mode. And we plan on paper, we journal till the cows come home, and we haven't taken action into the world. So the step we need to take is to strategize ways to show up for our business in the world, but use that genius to do it in ways that are comfortable. So you're taking your comfort zone with you, just like the extroverts are.
So would you think that introversion would be a problem, especially if you owned your own business?
It isn't really a problem in particular if you do honor your comfort zone needs and learn about your introversion so that you stop feeling like there's something wrong with you. So if you're in a situation where you are feeling like you have to fake introversion or you're getting the life drained out of you and you can't wait to go home, instead of feeling like there's something wrong with you, just realize that you are now in a situation that is not optimized for the way your brain is wired.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
So for the audience benefit, what should we clear this up, and is there a difference between being shy and being an introvert?
There is a big difference. Shyness is a form of anxiety, and it's based on fear, whereas introversion is your brain wiring. But a lot of introverts are shy, and it's understandable because you're not functioning that well in school compared to the extroverts who are getting rewarded. The teacher rewards you when you raise your hand to answer a question. Well, what's happening is the extroverts, because of their brain wiring, the extroverts raise their hand trusting that when they speak, an answer will come out. They're very good at thinking on their feet. So the quiet introvert is sitting there thinking and wondering, is this the right answer? Is it the best answer? Is it the most nuanced answer? And by the time they're ready to raise their hand, the teacher's moved on to something else. So you become self-conscious and you start feeling like there's something wrong with me. Why can't I be like that extroverted student that you don't realize is extroverted? You just think that's the right way to be. And a lot of times you're shamed by society because of that. So shyness is anxiety, and that can easily result from all of that.
Do you feel that people who are introverts have more issues with bullying in society or at school?
Probably. Extroverts are wired for taking action, so they're going to react, whereas the introvert, when something happens, when somebody's in your face in an aggressive way, your first line of defense is to think, what is happening, why is this happening, and you're more likely to strategize a way to get out of the situation. And one way that's common for introverts is to make the person laugh. A lot of comedians say that they are very introverted, and their comedic gift started when they were in school and were being bullied, and it was a defense mechanism.
So the answer might seem obvious, but I'm going to ask the obvious question anyway. Would society be better off if we were all introverts or if we were all extroverts?
We need both. And I think that society is better off when we honor our brain wiring, when we honor our nature, and optimize it, capitalize on it. I like to think in terms of the tortoise and the hare, from Aesop's fable. The hare is the extrovert, and they zoom off. You see this in business. They get a business idea and zoom. They're on Facebook with it, and they're very public. And that is their nature. Take action. And they figure out how to get around the obstacles along the way as they go along. Whereas the introverts are the tortoises, and we tend to take cautious, small steps, well-considered steps. We're assessing the risks as we go along, and that is our nature. So we're all going to get there in the end to the finish line, keeping in mind that in business your goal is to get customers or clients and make money. So we're all going to get there, but we just need to do it in a way that's optimized for how we're made. Trish, you mentioned that you are an introvert, and so I'm curious, how do you know when you have reached that point of sensory overload, when you just cannot take in one more thing?
So if you're going to ask me how I know that I'm in overload, basically I'm exhausted from being out in the public and talking to a lot of people, and this usually happens at larger events where I might not necessarily know a lot of people. It's really that also the feeling of needing to be by myself, and closing the door on the world. I'd pretty much say that that's how I know that I'm already on overload.
So after you realize that you've reached that point of total exhaustion, what do you do to get restored and to recover? What are some strategies that you use?
So if you ask me how do I recover, it's like I said, it's closing the door on the rest of the world. So I would probably set up a day and time, maybe 2 days, depending on what activities I've engaged in over the last week, where I would be doing a lot more of the paperwork I need to do for my business, or probably maybe just taking a day off, scheduling it that way. And I do that, where I set aside time for myself to be alone, because I am out in the public quite a bit, and I do interact with a lot of people because of what I do.
Another interesting fact about introverts is that we often, because of our brain, connect to our thoughts better through writing than through speaking. And I noticed, Trish, that you are holding a pen, but you don't have anything to write on. Does that pen serve a purpose for you?
Okay. All right, so I've been outed.
So yes, I do have a pen, and you've noticed that I have a pen. I do use, on every show that I've done so far, I've held on to this pen, except for one time where I was holding on to someone else's pen because I forgot mine at home. I feel that this object helps me by anchoring me and by grounding me. So it just helps me more feel like I'm more in my comfort zone.
I can relate to that completely, and I normally hold a pen whenever I'm talking to people, especially in public, but I didn't do it for this because I felt like it would be too weird if both of us were holding a pen, but I sure wanted to, and I feel like maybe I would have done a better job had I been holding my pen.
So Summer, let me ask you, how many people actually are introverts in the population?
I hope you're sitting down for this. Up to half the population are on the introvert side of the spectrum. So think of it as a spectrum. If you're in the middle, you are what we call an ambivert, but you're going to be on one side or the other. And it's estimated that 25 to 30% are on the far introverted side of the spectrum. So that's a lot of people who are feeling uncomfortable showing up for their business in this extrovert paradigm.
So you're saying half of the population.
So if that's the case, then how does it happen that corporate culture is geared more towards the extrovert?
They didn't know it was 50-50. Now that Susan Cain, with her book and her TED Talk, have really made this a worldwide dialogue, we do know, and I know that she is doing a lot to making corporations and schools more introvert friendly. And I'm trying to do it for solopreneurs. That's why I'm showing up in my bathrobe and my marketing materials, because that's our comfort zone, and we need to do that. And it's really a bias that goes back a long way, especially when the Industrial Revolution took place. And it was action, do, act, that was what was valued. And before that, it was more like your character, who you are inside was more of a value, and we were more an agrarian society. So that was what was valued, and that carried over into the psychiatric circles, where introversion has always been considered a neurosis. The scale goes from extroversion to neuroticism, which is people who want to or feel the need to be alone a lot and to be quiet. So it just wasn't valued. It hasn't been valued. And now, now that we understand with the new technology the brain differences, we can see that even in corporations, introverts bring a lot of gifts to the table. And we're seeing now how a lot of extroverts who are opening their mouths, letting things come out and don't hesitate, are often tanking the company. And they're seeing that you need the thoughtful introvert at least behind that person to kind of, provide a balance to moving the ship of the company forward.
Yes, I do remember that I did work for a company where there were certain values that the company chose, and these were highly valued attributes for an employee, and one of them was speaking up. And you had cards where it said speak up, and that you would congratulate somebody for speaking up. And I did find that it was an unfair practice at the company, and I did advocate for the people that I felt were contributing to meetings, to the projects, to the accounts, to the company as a whole, but not exactly by speaking up, because a lot of times people will speak up, especially those who like to hear themselves speak, and when they walk away and there's really not much done, whereas the people who are more reflective and thoughtful and are not given a lot of credit would go away and actually do something about what we were discussing. So I did try and champion this at the company that I was working for at the time, and it did work. It did bring to light that there are differences, and we need to look at the person as a whole.
First of all, you were very wise and kind to notice the value that the quiet people had, and then to champion them. And yes, visibility and putting ourselves forward is very difficult, but that's a good strategy. When you put other people forward, then they will also help you, and they get the chance. That's fine. That's an introvert way to move forward. But what really strikes me is how not only was the corporation rewarding the extroverts by pay raises, promotions, they actually were giving them a card as a reward, like a physical token to show we value you jumping up and running your mouth off. And a lot of times in performance evaluations, the quiet people are told to speak up more, to be a little more aggressive. And so they feel like then they have to fake being extroverted. And again, that is coping. Yes, you can do it okay. You can go back to your little cubicle and recover, but that's not really thriving. So that's my point. We need to thrive by honoring the way we are wired and the way our mind works.
So, for me, the last point that I would say on this, from my experience, is that, a lot of corporations will say, oh, you need to change your body language, you need to change this, you need to change that. But I think the focus needs to be, and to use the word holistic, take a look at the whole person and what they're actually bringing to the table, as opposed to just picking certain aspects and forcing people into those molds and into those cookie cutter, oh, this is how you should be in a corporation, because it doesn't work. It's not going to work for everyone, and it's also an unfair way to evaluate people. And again, look at their whole contribution as opposed to just one aspect of the contribution. And for the last word,
I think things are gradually changing, and that leadership training these days is more honoring leaders who really champion all the people who are under them. So I think that's good. The issue still remains for solopreneurs, because when you're working in a corporation, you can hide somewhat, you can cope, you can do all of those coping mechanisms, but when you are a solopreneur, the success or failure is completely on you. When you're in a corporation, it's not going to tank just because of you. But when you're a solopreneur, that becomes an issue because you are now the leader of you. And again, like a good leader, you want to honor your nature. You are the employee as well, so you're honoring that employee's nature and brain wiring and gifts and capitalizing on those in order to move your company forward in a way that is comfortable and even fun for you.
So we've come to the end of the show, and thank you very much, Summer, for coming on and talking to us about the differences between extroverts and introverts and the important differences between them.
Thank you, Trish, for having me. It was a great pleasure. You are a wonderful facilitator, and I am proud to be an introvert with you.
So thank you, everybody, for watching the show. Hopefully this has helped you learn either about yourself or the people around you, and that you can use that knowledge now to reach out to other people and see them, even though they might be different from you, see them for who they are and value them for that as well. Thank you very much for being with us today, and this is Trish Time. Bye-bye.